Okay, well, it's 4:01. Since we are recording, let's go ahead and get started. And I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. Everyone can see that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you very much for coming or watching later the Village of Oak Creek webinar. This is our second public meeting to talk about the progress of the study that we're working on. My name is Lynn Whitman. I am the director of the Flood Control District. You're also going to be hearing from Rob Lyons, the consultant who's running the project. And if you're lucky, Eric Sparkman might jump in. He's our district engineer. Our agenda, the background and goals, the purpose of the study, the stormwater modeling in the study area, and the results. A lot of this is stuff we talked about at the first meeting, but it's good for people who maybe weren't there, and I know I wouldn't remember. Regional problem area identification, next steps, questions and answers, and how to provide feedback. So this is the watershed that we're looking at. And a lot of you will remember we did a study originally in, I want to say 2008, of just the VOC area. And we did a couple of those projects, but then for this one, we wanted to expand it. We had a major event that came through, and a lot of the drainage complaints we received were outside of the VOC in VOCA and even south of VOCA. So we wanted to cover a bigger area. So this is the drainage area. Oh yeah, 2008. With that study, we identified 13 problems. We actually designed 6 projects. We completed 3 of those projects. And then the other 3 projects, we had a hard time getting easements from people. I remember trying to get easements, and people either weren't interested in a lot of it was people who didn't live in the area. They just weren't interested. So that one kind of died there. So when we started this one, we wanted to make sure people knew if a project comes through your area, are you going to be willing to provide us with easements? So then in 2022, when we kicked this one off, we sent out a survey to everybody. The survey asked for information on drainage on your property, erosion on your property, anything in the area around you. We received 117 responses, which is really great turnout compared to some other projects that we've done. And it really gave us a lot of information and a lot of insight where we should be looking and what kind of things we should be looking for. So we wanted to develop a model that would simulate the existing drainage infrastructure. We wanted to be able to look and see where the problems were in the model as well. So we had information from the residents on where they were seeing problems, but then we also wanted to run a good rainstorm through, a model of what's out there and see how much of it matches up and if we can identify other areas that maybe people didn't talk about. So we identified those regional problem areas. We talked about those at the last meeting and put those out for the public to identify or to review and let us know if they had any comments about that. And then develop conceptual flood mitigation alternatives. So we look at the problem areas and then we pick the ones that seem to be the biggest problems. And we start talking about what could we do? What kind of projects could we put in to alleviate some of these issues? And I believe this is where I pass it off to Rob so he can talk about the modeling.
Oops. Okay, thank you. I'll share my screen. I want that one. And, oops, I'm on the wrong slide. It's probably not going to start me there anyway, but oh, it did. Okay, so everybody can hear me and see my screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. And it looks like I'm not able to see the participants. So let me know if somebody enters the lobby or if you can let them in. Just let me know. Okay. So where Lynn left off, we chose a software model that does both the rainfall and runoff simulations, and then routes the flow. We call that the hydraulics of surface water runoff through the terrain and through infrastructure. So we used some really detailed LiDAR terrain. I won't go into that too much, but basically you have a bunch of points. You can see all these dots around an urbanized area with homes. We have an elevation at every one of these dots, and then we took that, sampled a gridded model, so it's basically a simulation of that terrain in the model at a 10-foot grid. And then we add building obstructions, storm drains. You can kind of see that in this aerial view here. This is on Verde Valley School Road. There's a pretty big storm drain in that road, if you're familiar with it. It's got catch basin inlets. Here's an example of one. This one's a little bit larger for even bigger flows. You've probably seen lots of manholes, pipes, and then we also add in culverts and bridges. There's a number of those, particularly on Jack's Canyon Road. There's some examples of some culverts or inlets. There's a driveway culvert. It looks like it's a little smashed. Another bridge. And then with that, once you've got everything parameterized, you have a model that will give you results for, you can run any event. So you might have heard of the 100-year flood or a 10-year storm. We can run all those events, and then that gives us design flow rates for if we decide we need to add a new culvert, or we want to add a storm drain or add a channel. Well, how big does it need to be? So we need that information so that we can estimate how much flow is going to get to this proposed facility. And then it also shows us, where the water's going, and is it intersecting with homes, for example, and it gives us flow depths, flow rates, and velocities. And velocities, the higher the velocity, the more erosive it is. So you might, if you're building a channel, you might need to armor the channel so that it doesn't erode. And then based on that data, we can combine it with additional ground truthing data that Lynn touched on, such as drainage complaints or just areas of known flood problems from the residents or from the county staff. We have the inundation analysis. So that's where we basically take those flow depths and intersect them with building footprints, for example, from a product you get from the mapping company. And we can estimate, okay, it looks like some of these homes might get flooded in a 10-year flood or a 100-year flood. And we don't know if it's true or not, because the data isn't that rich. It's close, but it's just another indicator that, like if you see a cluster of homes, for example, right here, there might be a problem there. There was another FEMA study that was done back in 2015, the Discovery Report. You can take some of those problem areas, and then, like Lynn mentioned, this original study was done in 2008, and so we also looked at those problem areas. Then with that, we've identified clusters of areas that appear to have problems, and then basically call that a potential problem area, and then start looking at solutions. So let's see, multiple ideas. Yeah, we decided to just take the top 11 hazard areas. I think we had 17, but got to draw the line somewhere. And then we started to look at what are the things that might solve this problem. All ideas are on the table. And then once you have that list, then you can start going through and saying, this isn't going to work because we don't have the land, or it's going to be way too expensive and it won't pencil out. And so that's sort of the phase one. And then we move into what we call phase two, which is, okay, now of the solution set that we think might have some legs, something that can actually work, you might be able to find some right of way, not super expensive. From that, now let's evaluate that a little bit higher. And so that's basically where we're at in the study right now. We've finished the phase two alternatives evaluation. So I'm going to present the various alternatives that we've evaluated. And then we'll touch on this at the end as well. The next phase will be kind of ranking those and then coming up with concept designs for the most feasible solutions for the most problematic areas. So stepping back, we're in phase 2. So I'm going to walk through the different alternatives that we've covered. This first one is the Vultee Road area. So you can see here highlighted in the yellow polygon where it's at. It's along Verde Valley School Road, just west of SR 179 along the Oak Creek Country Club. So the first option was looking at trying to just prevent the flows from even getting to that residential area. And if you move upstream, basically due north, the flows are coming off, off the monuments in the village of Oak Creek, and then flowing through the Oak Creek Country Club golf course, and then making its way down onto residential property. So this idea was, let's try to intercept that water before it even gets there. And we know from the modeling that there's actually excess capacity in an existing storm drain along State Route 179, and there's a large kind of custom inlet or catch basin, whatever you want to call it, that receives some of this flow already. So the idea was, well, let's just add some channels. It could take one of these two paths that are shown here on the screen and route those flows to the west to the highway. And so this alternative, it would actually benefit potentially a couple fairways on the golf course, reduces or removes the 100-year flood hazard for potentially up to 35 homes. The cost isn't that horrible. I mean, it's more money than I'd want to spend out of my own pocket, but relative to some other projects, it's not too bad. And then the one thing that, one of the hurdles that we'd have to go through is this would clearly require approval from the Oak Creek Country Club. And then of course, ADOT. So there would need to be some evaluations, some negotiations. Another alternative we looked at was, let's just see if we can capture some of the flow and put it in a detention basin, a stormwater detention basin. You can see there's a very conceptual layout of what the basin might look like. So basically excavate a hole, and then you'd need some sort of an outlet system to then redistribute the flows once it's been detained in the flood basin, so that it's redistributed downstream. So the goal of this one was to reduce the flow rate, not completely eliminate it, but you can see it's only one of the branches of the flow. So you still got water entering this Vultee Road area from more on the east side. But the goal is to reduce the flow rate down to something like a 10-year flow rate. It doesn't protect as much of the golf course. Let's see, you could potentially benefit up to 25 homes. So not as many homes, and it's a little bit more expensive. The benefit of this one over the prior alternative is, it's not going into ADOT right of way, so we wouldn't have to prove to ADOT that their own system has capacity. And then the final alternative for the Vultee Road area was to just add storm drain in existing right of way along basically right in the residential neighborhood. There is a storm drain trunk line in Verde Valley School Road that also appears to have some excess capacity. So we could potentially tap in this new system into the existing storm drain in Verde Valley School Road. This one's a lot more expensive because, you're ripping up streets, there's existing utilities that would have to be accommodated. Just, the cost of the storm drain and the catch basin structures. And then this one only seems to benefit 6 homes in the Vultee, the area north of Verde Valley School Road. And then there'd be some minor reduction into the areas south of Verde Valley School Road. We need to run the actual simulation to see if how much of a benefit there is south. So again, the cost is a lot more. I don't necessarily need to take the whole show. Lynn or Eric or Bryce, do you have anything that you want to add? on this one?
No, I think you covered
Please.
it pretty good. You that the option C there, doing the storm drain, like you said, that would take a lot of work. Even possibly revising the road profile and so forth. But the other two alternatives look much more feasible, actually, and benefit more too. So
Yeah. One thing that I did want to say, we looked at the 11 out of 17 areas, but that doesn't mean we're never going to do anything for those 17 areas. Some of those might have been too small for the study. There's an obvious, simple solution. Some of them might have only been for one home, and it's hard to spend taxpayer dollars on one home. Just because we didn't identify it as one of the 11 problem areas doesn't mean we're not going to do anything with that. It just didn't get to be part of this study. And then the other thing is with the options A and B, we've also talked about a potential combination of the two. If we can't get the whole amount into the ADOT right of way, maybe we could do a combination of the two. But yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, and yeah, like back to what Lynn said about the 17, they're still going to be in the report. They're still on a list. They're kind of more on the bottom of the list. So, as funds become available or as opportunities become available, sometimes you can combine a flood fix with a roadway improvement. And so the county's always looking at opportunities for win-win solutions. Okay, so we'll move on to Jack's Canyon Wash. So there was there's a number of locations along Jack's Canyon Wash where there's, potentially some people in the floodplain or access issues during a flood. This area around Juniper Street had a much larger cluster of homes that look like they're in the floodplain. So unfortunately, with such a large wash, there's limited things you can do. You're not going to put it in a storm drain, and well, I mean, you could, but we're talking massive pipe because it's a pretty large flow rate. So the most feasible solution seemed to be some minor channelization of the wash. So we came up with a footprint of that channelization. This is a cross section, just kind of an example cross section through the area that shows the 100-year water surface and then the 10-year water surface elevation. And we found with this channelization shown in red, basically excavating, so the channel has more capacity, we could reduce the water surface for both events approximately 2 feet through the area. So in just real approximate estimates, we felt like we could potentially remove up to 5 homes from the floodplain and reduce the flood hazard for at least 25 more homes. There's some cons to this solution. It's obviously very expensive, and there's some parcels or properties that would need to be acquired. And then more than likely, there's going to be some environmental permitting that would be required because this is kind of a nice riparian area. Here's a view just showing sort of the extents of this channelization. Okay, anything the county wants to say on that one? Maybe I'll just as we go through, I'll just chime in if you want to add anything.
yeah, I think I'll add, even that that's an expensive project, but anytime you can remove homes from the floodplain, not only is it a benefit, to the homeowners, but it also helps us score higher when we apply for these competitive grants. So it's important to note anytime you could get those homes out of the floodplain, it's definitely a big benefit.
Okay. So the next one is what we call the Saddlehorn Road area. So it's down here, kind of the southwest part of town. And it's along, I believe this is the, what is it called? The Sedona Golf Resort. There it is right there. So this is an area that had a lot of potential homes getting flooded and some drainage complaints. So this option was to add yet another, like a fairway channel within the golf course to intercept flows before they're going into people's backyards, and then routed in a storm drain all the way across, I forget what that road is. I think it's Crown Ridge Road. This option shows a small channel between the storm drain outlet and then a new culvert, but you could also just storm drain the whole thing. And so this one could reduce or remove the flood hazard for up to 13 homes. Obviously, again, we would need cooperation from the golf resort. And then it's about $3 million, so it's a little spendy. And so, yeah, you'd end up having to deal with utilities because you've got existing roads. So not impossible, but there's definitely going to be challenges. This option was really for a different area. It wasn't necessarily an alternative to that particular area, but this one basically it's a diversion channel on the Coconino National Forest, and then routing it in an improved channel to a new culvert across Pinto Lane. This one could remove as many as 6 homes. One of the cons is it's really hard to get permission to do anything on national forest land. And then of course the cost is kind of high, over $1 million. Okay, and then another option within the Saddlehorn area. The model results showed that there were a number of homes that could potentially be subject to inundation in a 100-year flood. You can kind of see the results here. And then there were also a few drainage complaints from people that lived in this small pocket within the golf course. There are some small pony walls, but they look like they're only about 1 foot to 1.5 feet tall. And according to the model results, there are several that would be overtopped. And then you can't always rely on a wall that really wasn't built for flood control to hold up. So this option was to just basically increase the capacity of a channel and divert it to a new culvert under Bent Tree Drive. Could remove as many as 27 homes. It would definitely require cooperation from the golf course, and it's about $500,000. Okay, moving on to Black Canyon. This is up here. Let's see. Okay. So this one was really more to benefit the golf course. We understand this is an area where the golf course has concerns, so it wouldn't have a huge benefit on residential property owners. However, if we could work with the golf course and maybe combine this with another project where we need their cooperation, there might be some kind of a win-win solution. I don't know if the county would necessarily pay for this, but there's some sort of negotiation that could happen with the golf course. But basically, this would remove flows from crossing the fairways, and then it would enter an existing channel in a more controlled fashion. And then this project here we left on the table. This was actually designed back in 2008. Basically benefits 2 properties that have had some flooding in the past. Yeah, it's basically just adding, taking the flows, putting them underground in a culvert. Okay, anything more to add, Lynn or Eric? Okay, I'll move on to Red Rock Road. This is again over at the Oak Creek Country Club. Let's see. So this area actually has a designed drainage ditch along Merry-Go-Round Rock Road, and then there's actually a couple of culverts that are in place. The capacity of this ditch that's shown here with the red arrows, there's almost none. I think there might have been a little bit of capacity when it was built, but it's pretty much filled in with sediment. So this alternative just is basically increasing the capacity of that roadside ditch, excuse me, and routing the flows to an existing culvert that's getting hardly any flows right now. It would require upsizing or adding another barrel to that culvert to get the full 100-year flows, but it has the potential to remove the flood hazard for up to 3 homes. And then this is another area within the Red Rock Road problem area. This one includes taking flows off of Red Rock Road. It's hard to see in this view, but as that water accumulates down Red Rock Road, it starts to spread out, and there's a bunch of homes off, south of this view that are shown to be potentially subject to flood hazard. So this is basically taking those flows from Red Rock Road, routing them in a new channel within the golf course, and then out, basically daylighting that new channel, or basically outfalling that new channel to an existing channel. This has a potential to reduce or remove the flood hazard for about 25 homes. I'm not sure if I've got an image of it, but further downstream where Red Rock Road kind of terminates, all that water flows out onto the golf course. And so there would be a significant reduction in flows that would be affecting the golf course. So hopefully, by working with the golf course to add this new channel and put it in a controlled location, they would still get some benefit from that, even though they're having to give up some land for this channel. Okay, Kaibab Way. That's where its location is. If I've got a view of it. So yeah, this is another one where it would have benefited to show the homes, but south of this area, there's a number of homes that were subject to flooding, and we found what looked like a pretty optimal solution, was to basically just add a tall curb or a pony wall, if you will, along an existing alleyway that could then route the flows basically kind of by the Oak Creek Country Club sign right there. There's an inlet. Yeah, it's shown right here on the lower left. You can see it, kind of an inlet there. This might need to be improved a little bit to accept these additional flows if we're diverting all this flow from going onto the fairway and the driving range. But this would have the potential to reduce or remove the flood hazard for about 25 homes. It benefits the golf course, obviously requires their cooperation, but it's a relatively low cost solution. I think this screen might, nope, it doesn't. Just south of Verde Valley School Road, this is where there's a number of homes that look like they're subject to some flood hazards based on these flows crossing the golf course. But this is another option for the same problem area, but basically instead of capturing it further to the north along that alleyway, you would add a new storm drain in Verde Valley School Road and some catch basin inlets to collect all those flows and then discharge them into an existing storm drain system that goes down Bell Rock Road. Based on our model, this is another system that looks like it's got some excess capacity. So we feel like we could add basically another lateral storm drain to it. So this wouldn't get all the homes because there's still a few homes north of Verde Valley School Road that wouldn't really be benefited that much from a storm drain, just south of them. So there's still 20 homes to the south of this proposed collection system that could benefit. And it looks like a cost of about 1.7 million. Okay, Crystal Sky Road. That's way over here on the southwest part of town. And this one, you can see where the flows seem to be intersecting with existing homes. There's an existing storm drain, but it doesn't start until kind of a ways down the road. This is all kind of sloping to the east. And so this idea was to take that water that's collected in the street and before it has a chance to basically jump the curb and start spilling to the north, let's change those curbs to have more capacity. So go with a vertical curb, and then where it intersects driveways, you'd have to do some modifications to the driveway to maintain that elevated crest before the water, basically to hold the water without spilling to the north. So it's relatively simple. It's just adding curbing and some driveway modifications, but because of the length, it is kind of expensive, has the potential to reduce or remove the flood hazard for up to 5 homes. Okay, so this table is basically a summary of all of the alternatives that we just discussed. You've got the project costs here. We just wanted it in one nice spot, so you can see there's a number of alternatives. And then this qualitative benefit to cost it's nothing that's calculated. It's basically just trying to look at the cost. How big of a problem is a problem area? How many homes are we potentially protecting? And so it's just kind of a qualitative rank. But for example, the Vultee Road option A, channel along the golf course, if you remember that first alternative, if we can get the golf course to cooperate, it benefits the golf course, and it benefits, I believe, something like 35 homes for a relatively low cost. So naturally, it's going to have a high benefit to cost ratio. And Lynn, I think this was actually your slide, so I'm going to let you take it over. Sorry about that.
Yes, yes. So what I wanted to talk about with this is we have kind of 3 levels of funding that we look at. For smaller projects, say $250,000 or less, maybe that's something that we can sometimes find money for in a given year if it's a priority for us. Anything more than that, we put into a 5-year plan. We've got a 5-year plan of all the projects that we're going to that we would like to do, in the future, with the money that we suspect that we'll get from our secondary property tax. And then the 3rd level is grant funded. Our levy for taxes is $5 million, but we give a lot of that back to the communities. Our project budget is much smaller than that. And so we are pretty good at getting grants, but the grants have to meet certain criteria. So a lot of times when we get a list like this, we look at which one of these are going to qualify for a grant. And then we're going to apply for that grant immediately because it's going to take some time to get that grant. Which ones could we do right now? Is there anything that we could do right now that we have funding for? So even though it might not be the number one project, it might be something that we can do now and get started on these and start to kind of tick these off while we've got some projects in our 5-year plan. So that was just what I wanted to discuss, was how we kind of look at, we might have a number one project, but that might get put into our 5-year plan. And in the meantime, project number 7 is getting done, and that's why. So.
Good. Did you want me to keep going?
Either way, I can go.
Okay, sure.
So the next step is going to be looking at those projects, determining which ones are the best that we can do, that are reasonable, feasible, that we're going to be able to find funding for. We're going to want to go out and talk to people that if we need easements, we're going to make sure we can get the easements before we go into design phase. If we can't get the easement, there's no reason to design the project. We'll prioritize based on the benefit cost ratio, and then we'll go into final design. That the final design is not a part of this, but we will pick up with the final design when this one is done in the next few months.
So I think I muted the few people that joined in the beginning. But you should have the ability to unmute your mics if you have any questions.
There is still the ability to provide comments on our website, and I believe was there a slide with that? It's the same place that it was before. Yeah. So for you guys and for anybody that watches later, after you watch this and you see the project areas, we will post this on that project page and look for comments before we move to the next step. or I guess I should say, as we move to the next step. We don't want to hold it up. We want to keep moving, but we are interested to see what everyone's thoughts are.
Okay.
I see Dave is there. It's good to see you, Dave, even though I don't see you. It's been a couple years.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, you
How
can.
you doing? Sorry, I was trying to unmute my mic there. Good to see
No
you, Lynn.
problem. Good to see you.
Thank you. I'm representing Big Park Wastewater, and as you know, we had some issues with a lot of our manholes were undermined and some issues in some of the floodways. So I appreciate you guys doing this study and trying to help at least some of the homeowners. It doesn't look like the area that we had issues with in the floodway actually got changed at all, but hopefully in the future we can look at doing some improvements in those areas. We did repair our manholes and hopefully they're in good shape for the next storm.
Yeah, great.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. Really appreciate all the modeling. That's really excellent work, Rob, and appreciate all the work you've done on that. I live on Volte, second house from Verde Valley School Road. And I think I sent you some pictures 2 years ago of the massive flooding. You not only have the water coming down, but you have a significant slope. Plus those culverts are about, what, 12 or 15, very small relative to the slope of the road, plus the amount of water coming down. So it was obviously never really designed for the amount of water that, or the elevation that's changed that's taking place there. So I had one question with respect to the easements. Do you
Yes.
have to, I thought an easement was a situation where you had access to that regardless of the property owner's, you know. So could you explain that? I understand that it's preferable to have the property owner's permission, but I thought the very definition of an easement was that you didn't have absolute right to reject whatever was going through there.
So the problem is that we don't have the easements. And so we had to approach property owners to ask them to give us the easement.
I see.
And sometimes we couldn't reach the people or they just said no.
Okay.
We are not an eminent domain community. So
Uh-huh.
if they say no, we're not going to do it. We have to find something else.
Yeah. Well, I hope that we can move forward. I don't know whether I'm going to live long enough to see anything happen, but I know these projects take time, and but $380,000, that just seems, like something that could be accomplished. I mean,
Right.
we're not talking millions here.
It's definitely more reasonable than what we had with the first study. And what I like about it is that it doesn't come through the neighborhood, So if we can get the permissions to do that, that might be one of our top priorities.
And there's no telling how long till actually something is actually done and the studies are completed, et cetera, et cetera. Do you have any thoughts about that so I can plan my longevity?
Hang in there. When do you think this phase will be done, Rob? You have an idea?
Yeah, I would think by the spring, I think we'll probably be wrapped up, right? Maybe even
And then
early
if
spring.
Early spring. And then if we jump into design, if we pick a project to design, how long? I guess it depends on the project. But maybe we would be looking at.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, for these kind of simple, they're not simple. I mean, they're more bite-sized projects. I mean, you could easily have them designed and sometimes constructed within a year. But this is assuming that everything's put into play and there's, everybody's cooperating, we've got permissions and
Right.
so, but I would think on something like that, like if we need golf course cooperation, ADOT cooperation, we should probably expect about a year for design. Just because there's going to be a lot of lag time just waiting for those external entities to review things and make up their mind.
And then you have to
Well-
enjoy it for a while.
Huh?
And then you have to stick around and enjoy it for a while.
I'm 80 years old, so time time is marching on. So it would be nice to see actually something happen. I appreciate all the work that you folks have done, and I'm very disappointed that we didn't have more people online. I can't quite understand that, but I'm only a psychologist, so.
Well, we did have
Okay.
some, a couple of people said they wished that it was in person. And so that might be something we think about if we have another meeting in the future. But I know that this had worked out the last time to do it this way because then people have access to the video.
I really think you've identified the priorities, at least as far as Volsky goes.
Yeah.
It really is a problem. There are people that are inundated. I only had 3 inches of water up to my house, but other people had, and the water's just running down the road. And
Right.
as I said, the culverts are, you know, the problems. I don't have to explain them. You studied them to death. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you very much. That's all I have
Thank
to
you,
say.
Mr. Perkins.
Okay.
Well, I want to thank you guys for all your hard work on this study. I've had another client contact me that's over in the Camp Verde area, and I was wondering, I didn't see any studies that you guys had done unless they're not listed on your website. Is that a future area that could possibly be studied or has been studied?
So the town of Camp Verde just did one. Did you look on their website?
I did not.
I'm not sure if it covered the whole town, but they did. I know they've got 2D modeling, and I'm not sure if they've identified projects if they've gotten that far, but I know that they did just complete a study in the town.
So I know they had
And
a
it's on
big
their
flood
website.
a year and a half or so ago, and
Yes.
I had a potential client that was looking at some property to develop, and they got scared away because it's in the floodplain.
Yeah.
So
That's a good one. That's a
Yep.
good
Yeah,
one, I think.
that study, I did talk to Jeff Lowe, and he said it has been finalized and it is available on their website.
well, thank you. I'll take a look at their website then.
Perfect.
Okay, I'm going to sign off. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay.
You too. Appreciate all
Thank you,
your work.
everybody. Appreciate your work on this.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess I'll go ahead and stop the meeting and hopefully it recorded okay, and I'll figure out how to download it and send it to you guys.
All right.
Sound good?
Thank you
Anything
very
else?
much.
Any other
I think it
last
went
minute
very well.
coordination? Okay.
I'm going to keep an eye on Mr. Perkins.
Yeah.
When it's built, I'm going to bring him out there and celebrate with him. When he's
Sounds good.
82.
There you go.
Thank you very much, you guys.
All right.
Okay.
No problem. We'll talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.